Well, Jeff, tell me how crazy this has been. October 30th, you and I are having a conversation about me coming down to speak at a charity event for you in Atlanta, and we're trying to orchestrate that. And the next week, you're the head coach of the Colts. How does that happen?
Yeah, quite a whirlwind. And I still think it's tough for me to catch my breath in this. It has been, I have enjoyed it thoroughly. It's been a ton of fun, but again, just unexpected. And so trying to catch up and figure it out on the fly, has had challenges and again, some of them I have thoroughly enjoyed, and some have been a little different than I expected.
Well, tell me what happened, because I got that phone call from Jim Irsay too. Hey, you're the guy I want. I don't want to hear any discussion about it. I know what that's like. Tell me what happened when he made that call.
Yeah, very similar to that, right? Hey, this is, I know you can do it, and he had asked me prior to, like a couple hours before, to talk to Karen about it, because I told him, I need to talk to my wife about it and pray, but, before we go any further in that discussion. And, Jim keeps different hours than the rest of us, right? And so I don't know what time it was, but I had a plane flight to go to ESPN in, whatever it was, 2 hours or whatever it was. And
so your phone rings and it's Jim Irsay.
Yeah.
And what did he say?
Yeah, he's like, hey, would you consider this? And I was just, I guess in my head, that conversation wasn't anywhere, and so you're kind of caught off guard. Like, how do you respond? So I sat there for a minute and I said, Jim, I just need to talk to Karen about it and, see where we are as a family. And he said, okay. And then he said, I'll call you back in a short time.
So you talked to Karen. What's going through your mind?
Are you crazy? That was, he's like, are you sure? Are you crazy? And, and he was very matter of fact. He's like, we have, 8 games left. Here's where we are. And so Karen and I sat down and we talked about it. And I was like, I really, and, when I came and addressed the players, and I think this is ultimately what it boiled down to me is I just care about this organization. Yeah. And, I don't know if people, I don't think people can grasp how much you care about something that you've been, my adulthood was forged here in this building, and you and I know it, but I know from mailroom, media relations, equipment, training staff, right? All these guys and girls.
It's us.
Yeah, it's us. It's our family, right? I mean, it was our family away from our family for so long. And so knowing everybody and just the conviction I felt that if I could go help in any way, that's what I felt strongly about. And I told the guys when I got here, it's because I care. I mean, not just about players and coaches, you care about them as well, but about this organization as a whole, about this community. Yeah. And you and I both know we still do things here in this state, in this city. Yeah. This is, my life was changed because of the Indianapolis Colts. And so to repay that in any way, and that's where Karen and she was like, I completely agree. Yeah. So that was the final decision maker.
So Jim says, hey, I need you. This is what you can do. How did you think you could help?
I thought I could come in, accountability, the things that I knew, and because I was consulting with it. So I was watching practice. I was seeing the things, throughout the weeks. And I was talking with Frank, who is a friend, and I'm talking to Strauss, our O-line coach. And so I'm having these conversations. So I kind of knew what was going on, and I just knew my personality, right? From an energy perspective, I know. From an accountability perspective, I know. And then probably my greatest concern was the coaches, and how would they respond to this? And so I felt pretty strongly I could get the players to buy in because I've lived that life, right? And I know how important it is. What I didn't know is the side that you lived on for your life.
That's what I was going to ask you. You've talked to tons of players. You've had meetings with offensive line and offense, and you talked to people. Never had those kind of meetings with coaches. What was your thought, your first meeting with your coaching staff?
I was extremely nervous, much more nervous than when I went into the team room. And, here are men who not only do I respect what they do, but I want to make sure they understand, like, I'm not going to walk in and diminish anything that all of these men have worked for their career. And when I walked in, I just told them, I said, hey, man, like, I hope you all understand I'm here to help empower you and to help you be the best coaches and get our players to be the best they can be. I am in no way the smartest coach on this. I don't pretend to know things I don't know. I will ask you for help. I will ask you for your opinion, and I have no problem if you look at me and go, hey, this is not right, or I see this a different way, and I take this from you. That doesn't mean I'm going to change my opinion, right? Because I learned that from you, right? We had a lot of discussions where I'd be like, Coach, hey, here, and you would listen to me, you shake your head, yeah, I understand, I understand, I respect your thoughts. I'm not going to do it that way, but I made sure that everybody felt comfortable that we're in this together, and this is a team, and I wholeheartedly believe that, my job is to support them, from a day-to-day perspective, from an organizational perspective. That is my job, and to create and cast vision, direction, and then hold the guys accountable as much as I can to make sure they're doing what those coaches are asking them to do.
It happens so fast, and you don't have a whole lot of time, but what were one or two things that you definitely wanted to see done, and here's what we've got to do to win?
Competition amongst ourselves, right? Like, I felt like that was vital. I wanted to see guys go compete, right, on the practice field, to challenge each other. I think greatness is forged when you're going against the best. And so how do we get that? How do we get the mentality where it's expected that we're going to walk out there and go compete against each other every day? And what does that look like? And energy and enthusiasm has to follow those things. But you and I both know when you get competition going, enthusiasm, energy follow quickly. And I told the coaches earlier, I'm not a guy who's all about scripted looks. I want to put people in the most uncomfortable positions they can be in. And again, whether it was you or Jim Caldwell, I watched those processes work. And my conversation to all of them, to coaches and players, is this process matters. It's not magical. It's not going to happen tomorrow, right? And I think from an expectations perspective, I have very realistic expectations. This is a lot of work to be done, but the process matters. And once we start to change that, and we stack practice on practice, and then we translate it from practice to game, and that's the way this thing works. And I've watched it work that way, but there's nothing. It's simple, but it ain't easy, right? And that's that's really my the conviction that I have about what I'm doing.
What was the response? What was the response from the coaches and from the players?
It's been phenomenal. And when I tell you, because I am so grateful to the coaches for the response that they have. I mean, these men come to work, ready to work, prepared, they grind, they sacrifice, and I'm so grateful. Yeah, they could have let me sink in a hurry, right? I mean, and you and I both know, and I'm not, they could have been like, hey, this guy, we're going to, and not one. They have all come in and contributed offensively. We're down 2 or 3 coaches, so those guys have had to be asked to do more, and they have stepped in. And so I'm so grateful for the response and the encouragement that they've given me. I can't tell you how many coaches have walked up to me. These guys are 35 years, they're men, head coaches, guys who have been around this business a long time and have walked up to me and said, Coach, I appreciate the way you're doing this the right way, the way we're going about this. Players, I had a player, and I won't mention his name because, in case he doesn't, but he looked at me and was like, Coach, I'm doing, for you, like this, I love what you're bringing in here. And so those are the small bits of confirmation that you get as you process. And look, I know I'm not going to be perfect, right? I know, and I don't ask a player to be perfect. Yeah. We understand we make mistakes. That's what this is. But it's the growth and the learning that I feel like is occurring that I'm probably most excited about and appreciate.
I was an assistant for 15 years, kind of getting ready. And when I stepped into the job, there were 25 things that I said, I never anticipated that. What's been the biggest one of those for you?
Oh, that's a great question. Distractions have been, and when I say that as kindly as possible, but these things, right? Like, it's all this, right? It's all the extra that you're asked to do that takes you outside of meetings. And then I probably the biggest thing that I've had to learn, and I was told this by, Ballard said this to me, Mike Tannenbaum said this to me, a lot of guys, Bill Polian, they said, the expectations that you have from your players, being able to breathe that into your players, because it's not the norm. So if you have expectations that these guys are going to do it this way, you have to teach them and train them to. It's not second nature. And to us, in my world, in my head, whether it be with, Peyton or the group that we had, it's that all the details were handled, and we handled them. And so, but being able to impart that into players is the part that I'm learning, right? And so, but the extra and that part to me is the part that I'm making sure I'm managing through. And so mistakes that are made, whether it's in practice or in the game, I go back and we rehash it. I show it on film. Hey, here's what my thought process was. Here's what was yours. And let's talk through this so it doesn't happen again. How do we get this and how do we fix this? And so those are the two things that I felt like were a little bit, I guess I had heard it, but just didn't realize, those were the areas that I'd have to hone in on the most.
What was it like speaking to the defensive guys?
I loved it. Listen, it's a different world. Now, and here's the funny part, right? So everybody makes fun of, that I coached in high school and all these things, right? But the reality is I learned a ton in coaching high school football. I mean, in my however many years I was coaching, whether I was a head coach or an assistant coach, how many coaches I had spoken to, and the different schemes, the different philosophies, but the communication that you have from an offensive side, a defensive side, and a special teams. I don't think people realize like how they're wired. Gus Bradley isn't wired like Parks Frazier, right? So being able to, and then Bubba, they're special teams guys they're entities of their own, right? And so having these conversations with these guys is fantastic. And I laughed. I went in after our first game, and I went into the defensive staff, and I made a joke to them because I said, listen to y'all on the headset, and the offensive side of
totally different.
Totally different. And I said, but I had learned that a bit when I was in high school because the way that they process the game and talk through things, and so it has a bit of levity. I laugh about it because it is so different. But to the defensive guys, and to their credit, there's so many guys who have done it so long on that side of the ball in this building. These guys, Gus is a rock star, Foxy being there, Richard, I think he's coached 35 or, he's been there 35 years in the NFL, Milo. So all the coaches, they're so in sync. They understand what's expected, what they need to accomplish, and then we just talk through. And my okay is, hey, can we all out, you know what I mean? And all the rest of it is, their conversations. But hey, coach, are you good with it? Yeah. Whatever. And so those are the feeling out process from the offense defensive side that it's a little different.
Now you mentioned all these guys with experience and they've been here. People nailed that as a criticism. Jeff Saturday hasn't coached and he's got all these guys. How did you process all that? How do you handle that?
Yeah, I think obviously I expected that I would get some flack, but the conviction I had far surpassed that. I've done a lot of things that had never been done or had never been, and so I was never expected to do a lot of things, and so I wasn't overly concerned with how people would view me nearly as much as I was of how the ones in this building would view me. And so to make sure that I earned their trust in any way that I could, I have looked at a number of different guys who, were given opportunities and how can I make the most of it? And I honestly, in part of the conversation I had with Karen, I actually had the conversation of how this could open doors for guys like me, right? Former players who have stayed around the game and people, they make sweeping generalizations, right? Well, every player, no, that's not, we know there are different levels of from a player perspective, a coaching perspective, all those different things. But I never thought to myself that should make me not take this job. Right, is that I appreciate and respect people's response, and I've said it before, right? God, the Lord's my defender. I don't have to defend any of this. What I got to do is make sure this building is taken care of, and the men and women in this building understand that we have a direction, a vision we're trying to attain, and the rest of it I can't control.
Yeah. You mentioned Peyton. Did you hear from him during this process?
I've heard from him one time.
Only once?
Yeah, only once. You know what I mean? So I heard from him. I think it was the day I took the job, or maybe the day after the job, or something like that. And he was just like, "What in the world?" And the rest of it, I've just been busy. So it's very difficult to get any kind of time in where you're going to do that. But I'm sure he would have been like, "Dude, you've lost your mind taking this thing on, right?" He's coaching Little League now, so he understands. You know what I mean? But again, all the guys, I mean, from former players and players I've played with, players I didn't play with, that I've worked with, they have all been so, and whether they agree with the decision or disagree with the decision, they've all been awesome about texting me, calling me, leaving me voicemails. Man, I wish you the best, and go attack this thing. And because I do hope it opens up opportunities for guys and gives them the ability, if they do want to pursue this as a profession, they can move in and make the most of it.
You and Peyton had a wonderful relationship, went back and forth at times. I remember one particular incident that I wasn't even aware of till the next day, but everyone thinks you learned a lot from Peyton, and I'm sure you did. Did he learn some things from you?
Hey, come on. You know it. Listen, I tell people, man, my back is sore from carrying 18 for them years. You know what I mean? Hall of Fame jackets and all, man. Get on that back. No, it was, we had a great relationship and perspective on how we attack this game. Is you have two type A leaders, right? I mean, and the demand not only from ourselves but others is high. And so having those discussions, him pushing me, and I think the thing that I love most about him was there was nothing he ever asked me to do that he hadn't done. And so I was so grateful for that part. But if I disagreed, it was going to be known and why I disagreed, right? And so, and like I tell people all the time, he and I would go back, and you heard it, right? Like we're going in practice, we're going to go at it. Like we're going to go at it. We're going to get it. So, but we did that because we knew on Sunday how that would show up, and so the discussions of, hey, this is why this makes it really difficult on our group, or why is it hard on you, and
we can do this.
That's right. We can get to this and make it much easier, and being able to go back and forth and understand that it wasn't just the O-line's problem or the quarterback's problem. It could be the receiver's problem or the tight end or the running back. How are we putting this? And so I think that part of the relationship helped me develop as a player in total, that I cared about what was going on outside, inside. But him understanding that there are certain looks that as an offensive lineman and as a player, we know we can take advantage of. And I love that you're setting records, but that doesn't change anything for us, right? And we're gonna get all kind of celebration, but let's make sure that we're. And he was such a great teammate of knowing. And the other part is, all those battles, only one became public because he was mic'd up, looking for attention for himself again for his next career, right? So he's mic'd up. It's 100% his fault. But those conversations happened a lot, and it just so happened.
People didn't.
This one got caught, but it was never personal. And we didn't go to the media about it. We didn't have these long conversations about, oh man, are you guys upset with each other? Yeah, we're upset with each other, and we're gonna let it be known. And then in 30 seconds, and the other part is my role. And understanding on Sundays and Mondays, he's the captain, and he's got to be, because if I challenge that, then you got 9 others, who are going to be with me, and you can't. That can never waver, right? And so trusting that I knew after these conversations he was going to do what is right for the team, and I appreciated that. And people don't realize in that game, on that Monday night game. Afterwards, we got back down there, we ran it, right? So I was right. He knew it, okay?
We did
but
run
my
it down
favorite
there,
part is that he came back, and it was like, respect, man. Like we love each other. Dude, it's about winning, and he knew that, and I knew that. But I was never going to challenge that part in a game, because you have to have leadership and roles. And my role, I can be a leader, but at that moment, I got to trust whatever call he's making. We're going to go do that 100 miles an hour. And if we're all 11 doing the same thing, we're all right.
Got it. Now, you talked about being busy, family time. How has that been the last month?
Well, yeah, so my youngest came up with me pretty much right away. My wife stayed in Atlanta for some family reasons, but now we're all together. And so, and I will say, and to Mr. Irsay's credit, I did tell him, listen, I've been around this a long time, and this will, I remember how Tony did it and Jim did it. I will, this will not be a sleep at the office deal for me, right? Like I've never been around success where that's what it looked like, and we're going to have a balance, and not just for me, for my whole staff. And so there have been things that I have done to make sure that those guys understand when the work is done, go home. If my truck is still in the parking lot, it means nothing, right? And if my truck is gone, it shouldn't mean anything to you, right? You understand what responsibilities you have. Once you've completed them, let's go. There's no more hours need to be spent, and from a freshness perspective, I feel like that's vital, right? That if you just stay in and it's all day, every day, you get so tunnel vision that you can't even see really kind of what's going on. And so get out, and then I want you to be with your wife and with your kids. If there's events that you have to go to them, and technology now, we can do we Zoom, we did Zoom meetings for 2 years and got everything accomplished, but all of a sudden, and so I think I've been very open to suggestions on guys of, hey, how much do you need to be here? How much do you not need to be here? And everybody has governed themselves exactly as they should. And it's important for me to do this differently and to make sure people understand that I want coaches with their wives. I want coaches with their kids. If their kid has a play or a game, I don't want to hear the stories of, I never saw my kid play a high school football game, or I never saw him play in his college. Listen, we got much bigger things than just this game, and we get that perspective messed up, we're all in trouble. And so I go through it from that perspective, and am proud that I saw it lived out that way, and it will not be any different.
It can be done.
Exactly. We won a lot of games, right? And we'll get criticized for how many we won, how we won, right? Everything. But I do know that I watched marriages flourish. I watched parenting and fatherhood flourish, and it still have so many relationships from those teams because we did do life together. It wasn't just ball. It was everything else around it, and I think that's important to you. Absolutely. I mean, it's the most important thing. And here's the thing that I try to pass on to my guys is when you care, not just about how the guys perform on the field, but when you care about the guy beside you and you know his family and what he's going through, and you are talking to him, mentoring him, praying, but whatever it is that you're doing with that, the unity and the bond that is built through those things is what makes you play better on Sunday, Monday, Thursday, how many days we play now, right? That's the part you can't miss, man. Like, you can't miss that relationship matters in this business. And that's whether it's coach to player, player to player, that is coach to coach, that matters because the weight and responsibility we carry is so much more than just the game. And I just feel like that's the most important thing we can pass on.
Well, you bring this energy and this family atmosphere, and we're going to do this together. And the first week you win on the last drive of the game. You got to stop the fourth down play, and you win. What was that feeling like? Unreal.
So, Gus looks at me and he's like, can we bring it? Bring it. Let's go. And I knew Gilly was going to be matched up on 17, right? And Adam best in receiver and whatever. And I was like, hey,
don't throw it to him and let's go.
Exactly. Let's go make a play. And when they made that play, I couldn't tell you how proud I was of Gus and then of Parks. I thought he did a great job. Our offense played well. The offensive line played well, and receivers made play. Everybody on the offense, defense, it made plays to win and impact the game. And so I was obviously extremely fired up, and I felt extremely blessed. But you and I wasn't in the mindset of this has fixed all the problems, right? And so I think I kept it in pretty good perspective. Of as excited as I was, I knew the work is there's still work to be done. And so as excited as I was, I knew, the grind is real.
Yeah. And then the next 2 weeks, Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, it comes down to the same thing. You battle, you fight, and it's the last drive, and now it doesn't go that way. Tell me what it's like as a coach experience a loss as opposed to a player.
Much harder. Much harder. I told Kieran, I said, from a player's perspective, I think because physically you've given all that you can, that there's a part of you that's just resolute in whatever's happened. Like some plays weren't great, but as a coach, I rethink every play on every phase. Yeah. And I never thought, you know what I mean? So I think about the defensive calls. I think about the special team call. You know, could I have done something different offensively?
Did we practice this play?
Yes, exactly. We didn't, wait a minute, you know, I called this play and expected that we could run it, but they had never done it. And so, you know, and the things that I assume that we have gotten done. And so I go back and just mull it over and think it over. But much more difficult, the losses for a coach, of just how it grips you. And the weight and responsibility that you have for your entire staff, knowing what they've put in, and just feeling disappointed for them, because you want results to be immediate. But the reality is I try to always fall back on, you know, the process doesn't change for us. You know, it's not plays, it's not players, it's execution. And how do we get our mindset to translate back to that? And that's really what I've gone through.
Now, you're the center. You make a wrong line call, and Howard Mudd, your coach, is the only one who knows it.
Yes.
You're the head coach, and you don't call a timeout, and 50 million people have an opinion.
Absolutely.
Tell me about that.
Yeah. Expected it, right? I mean, honestly, when I came in at the night of the game, I really wasn't. I didn't think anything of it. You know, I knew in my head what I wanted to get accomplished. I knew the reasons I wasn't calling timeout, right? I'm not going to get into all, but I knew, right? I knew clearly where I was in that, and I know. I mean, I've worked for you. I know Monday night whether it's P and Eli busting me up, or if it's Joe and Troy putting the slam. I'm sure, right? I don't listen to it, but I'm sure they all, they're crushing you. I've seen Peyton, I've seen all this, right? So there's nothing new for me. And then I got my Get Up guys, and they're texting me for the Tuesday morning show that I know. But really what it came down to for me was going back and looking, and the part that I was disappointed in, it had nothing to do with time. And everybody But for the outside world, it's all that. Yeah. But for me, it was I hadn't practiced something with them that I expected them to execute to the level that I thought that I would have, right? And again, that's my learning curve. Is, man, I know in that situation how fast that thing is going to happen, and in my head I'm thinking we have the advantage. We got plenty of time. We want to keep those guys on the field. I don't want them to run off and bring on four fresh ones, and so the thought process is in there, and so I didn't go back on myself and go, man, the thought process was wrong. It was the execution of it. And that's what I told my guys. I was like, here's what I'm accountable to. I should have known in this personnel group that guys get switched and they don't really know exactly where to be. So hopefully we don't do it again. Now we go back and practice and figure it out. But coming into something and learning it that way in front of 50 million people is hard, right? Like, everybody's going to bash you. And, my wife takes it, she's like, babe, did you? And I'm like, yeah, probably, she's like, because she can't, it's hard for her not to listen. Or my kids, I got two in college and one in high school, their friends are like, man, your dad blew it. What a dumb, and listen, I can take it. I get it. And I get that people, every decision is going to be criticized. But I was comfortable in dealing with that portion. I just wanted my team to understand this is why I own it, man, because when I ask you to execute, you should ask nothing less of me than the same. And but yeah, it's
and the crazy thing about it, if you win, it doesn't even matter.
Don't make any.
Someone kicked off to Devin Hester at the Super Bowl, right?
After we had said, I don't think so, Coach. No, we're good. Yard, and we're all what? We overcame it.
We overcame it. We win. Nobody even talks about it anymore.
That's right.
That it goes with the territory. Anything else that goes with the job that's kind of surprised you?
I tell you, probably the part that's my favorite part of this job is the teaching. I'm from a family of teachers. So, my mom, my sister, right, my aunt was a teacher and principal. One of my uncles now has gone into teaching after a military career, and that's my favorite part. And like when I go on that grass or when I'm on that field, and being able to say, hey, listen, here's the thought. Let me help you with this technique. Or when you get down to the real coaching, and the aspect of helping someone progress their craft, and you watch them take these steps and get better, it's life-changing.
Yeah.
And that part to me is what brings me to life. And I would say that I knew I loved it when I was coaching high school, and I love that part of it. And then coming in here, you just don't always know how people are going to accept it. But what I have realized is players love that as well. They love to be coached hard. They love for things to be expected and demanded. And they just want you to arm them with the ability to get it there. And so I love that. And it's in any phase, anything that I can do. And that's probably been the most surprising part for me, is how much I have enjoyed that part, because the relationships I've built through it, it's already paying dividends, and I've just been so grateful for it.
So after 3 weeks of enjoying it like this, is this something that you want to keep doing?
I do. And again, I have no idea how this thing works out. And I know, Jim and the Colts have their own. They have processes they're going to go through, and but I know I enjoy it. And so wherever it is or however it looks, having that conversation, and I think. Because I have talked to other head coaches now, guys have reached out, and knowing the ownership of an organization, I think, would be vital. So there are things that I know that I don't know that I'll make sure I communicate, because not everybody's going to want to do it the way that I would, right. And I would only do it that way.
Right.
I will not, if they say, hey, this is a 24/7, I want coaches here. First of all, I won't do it, and I won't ask another person to do it. And so if that's the defining line, this is not for me, right? I'll go back to doing what I was doing or something and enjoy my life. And but if people understand, my conviction is, first and foremost, we're going to deal with our families and the men as a whole, and the organization as a whole, and then the wins will take care of themselves. But I'm not sure that translates to every organization, and maybe it does. I just don't. I know it does here, and so obviously this is the one that that my favorite because of that.
Well, I've got one last question to ask you, but. Do we have time, or should we take a time out here?
Is that? I should get somebody to give me the film of Peyton and Eli.
He's doing it right.
He's doing it. And his eye, his screen is like way above. So like when he's watching on TV, he's like looking up. He's not like Eli's at least got the thing pulled off where he's eyeing the camera. Manning's like up here, dude. He's So I'm sure. Just make sure you give that one.
Well, here's my question. I know you talked about playing for me, playing for Jim Caldwell, and you learned a lot of things. Is there anything that we did that you said, we're not doing that?
There's really, it's funny, there's really not. Because some of the things I asked you to change, I'm like, there's no way I'm changing it. I told somebody that the other day, I said, I literally remember walking into Tony's office and be like, hey, coach, I think we need to do this and that. And now I'm on the other side. I'm like, ain't no way I'm gonna let that happen. And so your conviction was, hey, Jeff, I appreciate you asking this, and I was always the guy they were sending up to you. That was my role, right? Like all the other guys, hey, Sack, go talk to him. Okay, so, but no, I mean, really, and I know I told you this before, but so much of what I hear myself say is from you and Jim, and the way that you said it. And I tell people, I don't think you even realize as a player going through that in your life how much it's ingrained in you and it becomes your DNA. And because now I've seen it and I know it works. And so I'm not going to veer from it, right? I'm gonna drive that home. And so, when I have meetings with players or when I have meetings with coaches, I literally think back, how would these guys have handled this conversation or handled this move for the team? And I'm grateful for that. The only thing I would say I'm different from you in, I'm very loud. You know what I mean? So where I tell people all the time, this is definitely not TD. This is all me. But I got more Howard Mudd in me.
Yes, I know that.
Yes, there will be things said and said loudly. That's the only difference.
You made a decision when you first came back to put Matt back in the lineup. Tell me what went into that from your standpoint.
Yeah, and so when I had looked at the New England game, and I looked at what happened and how New England played them, and with Sam being the starter, and I love Sam. Great kid. He's going to have a heck of a career. Like, I have no doubts about him as a player. But we have a rookie left tackle. We have, we had rotated 3 right guards. We had guys banged up in the. So when I'm looking at the whole picture, I know what defenses, I know how they're going to look at this, right? This is chaos is coming, right? They're going to keep bringing and keep presenting problems because they can overwhelm you, knowing that the experience level back there is, he hasn't seen. And so when I sat down with Matt, he wasn't practicing, so I didn't even know if he could play. And so my first day here, Sam was playing quarterback. Matt wasn't even dressed for practice. And so afterwards, he came in and said, "Hey, Coach, I'm going to throw for the first time today." And so that got me thinking. And I was like, "Hey, are you, would you be able to come back and play?" And he was like, "Absolutely." So we had a conversation. And I asked him very, very blatantly, "Do you want to play?" Right, like this has been hard on you getting benched, and you and I both know the attention that goes beyond, to that, and it's beyond just the field, right? It's personal. It's personal for your family, for your wife, for your kids, and so I said, "Hey, man, go home and think about it and let me know." And then I let those guys, I just talked to them. "Hey, man, practice," because I needed to see him throw, volume throw for the next couple of days. And just ask Matt, "Hey, are you ready to do this?" And he's like, "Coach, I'm all in. I'm ready to go do it." And again, that wasn't going to be the answer, right? The only answer. It's not just about. And I know in the world we think one guy, but you and I both know that I wish it was that simple, but it's not. But I knew that from what the experience he had and what he's bringing to the team, and I asked guys in particular, "Hey, does this make you feel comfortable?" And there was a resounding yes from a leadership perspective, and so that was really what went into the decision.
We had some pretty good gift givers, Edgerrin and Peyton. What's the best gift you've got?
Yeah. So Edge, his gifts were weekly. So that was my favorite part. Is every week it was helpful. It was if Edge played good, we all felt much better. I'm just going to leave it at that. But my man Edge took care of us. It wasn't just one big gift. He would make sure he was helping out weekly, which I was always so appreciative of. And then Peyton, I think the greatest gift he ever gave me, he took me to Augusta National. And that was pretty awesome, man. He set the trip up. I'm from Georgia. I would never get it. No matter how good I was in football, I was never getting an opportunity to get on there without somebody like him. And so he had friends that were members, and so he was like, "Hey, this is what I like to give you," and it was unreal. Now, that being said, he sets it all up, right? We're going to fly down because we're in the middle of Austin, so we got training, so we're going to train. And so he tells me, I ask him, gear. I'm like, "Do I need?" He's like, No, you don't need a tie. So we're on the plane going down there. He's like, "What color tie are you wearing?" I was like, I didn't bring a tie. And he just laughs hysterically because that's him, right? Like, sets me up to fail. Yeah. So he gets me on the tie and then his brother is there, and his brother gets me on, go have a phone call outside and go have and I had no idea. So I walk out on the phone and no phones. No phone should be there, right? So they're screaming at me. I'm like, all right. The Mannings love freaking practical jokes. They got me, 2 of them. But just a tremendous gift and one that I'll always appreciate.
So did that influence you to give a nice gift to someone?
Absolutely. So, and again, I'm not going to, but yes. So we, as offensive linemen, once we got a contract, we made sure to take care of all the rest of our guys. And so whether that would be trips, whether it was, vehicles, whatever it was, right? Like, we're all blessed and fortunate, but making sure that everybody understood that it wasn't just one of us. It was all of us. And I was so grateful for the guys I got to play with. But, man, those moments when you're giving something to the ones that you've went in with for so many weeks and so many years, and when you get together, just so every fan knows, it ain't ever about the games. It's about the bus rides, the flights, those trips that you were together, your families. I mean, when you, and those moments, right, of, man, you remember when we all went and did this together, the Friday afternoon after practice that we all eat together. It's all of those that you did along the way that matters most.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.